What if the way you've been telling your life story reveals the secret to what is holding you back? Stories play an integral part in how we see not only ourselves, but the whole world. Stories are more than just an important part of communication. They also reveal hidden aspects of our inner talk, which can either support us or end up holding us back from the very things we want most in life, without us even realizing it. Join author, mindset coach, and award-winning singer-songwriter Carrie Rowan on her show, Look for the Good, every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. when she shares nuggets of wisdom from her internationally best-selling book, Tell a New Story, 5 Simple Steps to Release Your Negative Stories and Bring Joy to Your Life. Carrie's powerful stories and compelling guests will empower you to change how you look at your own life while giving you some powerful tools and tips you can use every day to help you feel better and move yourself closer to the life you've been longing to live.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Look for the Good. I'm your host, Carrie Rowan, mindset strategist and mindset coach, and I love sharing nuggets of wisdom about the stories we tell each other, but more importantly, those stories that we tell up here to ourselves. So you can join me and my special guests as we share our personal stories of strength and triumph every week here on Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. You can listen online on your mobile device, in your car, or ask Alexa to play Dream Vision 7 Radio. Tune in every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern to get real stories and tips on how to turn your story and your life around. And evolve with us as we unite humankind with universal love. And I'm super excited to be here today with my special guest, Lanette, who's waiting in the wings. Hello, Lanette.
Hi, Carrie.
And do we have a conversation for you today? I love this conversation. We're talking about so many incredible things, and we're going to talk about what really makes our lives important, or really rearranging those stories to focus on. Well, of course, what I'm going to say is to look for the good, right? Even when life is throwing that stuff at us and the stuff is hitting the fan, and however you want to describe it, that always happens. But to really get yourself in that mindset and to be able to start your day and do something that really is sort of like getting ahead of mindset. I love talking about that. And mindset's really important to Lanette as well. I know that. And she really weaves it so beautifully into all the work that she does. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about books. And of course, books are filled with stories, right? And what is your story? What is your life story? Because half the time we don't realize that we continue to tell a story that's not empowering to us. And when we can take a look at that and hold that story and ask ourselves questions about that story, only then can we rewrite that new and beautiful story, right? And I know that's really part of what you help clients do as well, Lynette, is to really get in there and rearrange those business stories, right? What's holding you back from being the best that you can? And we're going to talk all about that today. So without any further ado, I wanted to read your bio, Lynette. Is that okay?
Sure, that sounds great.
It's always so fun when somebody else reads it for you. So Lanette Pottle is the author of the number one international best-selling book, Profit Right: How to Create Books That Grow Your Business, Brand, and Impact, weaving together her experiences as a seasoned trainer, certified life coach, business strategist, and publishing mentor. She helps entrepreneurs and experts transform their wisdom into change-making books. I love the way you describe that. It's quite beautiful. Welcome to the show, Lanette.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. I know it's your second time on. This is truly, truly special. And it's extra special for you because you just launched that beautiful, gorgeous book that's sitting right behind you. And if everybody's listening on radio, they can't see it, but I'm here to tell you, I love the cover of your book called Profit Right. Just amazing. Great job on that.
Thank you. Thank you. I have to give not all the credit. It's a collaborative approach, but my designer, George, with G Sharp Designs, it was a delight to work with him. And interestingly enough, it was one of 2 concepts that he provided. And it took a little mindset work for me to land on this, which is the exact right cover for the book.
It's so the exact I love the way that pen, it has like this glowing at the end of it, and then that
Yes,
sort of reverberate. It's very beautiful, and I love covers that are simple but powerful, right? And that's exactly what it is.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
I love having a choice, and he gave you a choice, which is a beautiful thing. So, Let's talk a little bit about mindset because we were talking about that. And then I can't wait to ask you about what's on the back of the book as a little teaser for our listeners. So, the whole concept of profit, right? I read a stat, I think we talked about this before, like 90% of people want to write a book, but they don't, like less than 5% actually get around to doing it. It's a lot. It's a lot of work. Like, what is the mindset that somebody has to be in when they're going to tackle that kind of incredible venture?
I think the biggest thing, Carrie, is taking the focus off of ourselves and shifting that to our readers. Who are you writing this for and why are you writing it? And it makes it a whole lot easier, just that shift in and of
Mhm.
itself,
Mhm.
because it's not about us looking a certain way or being clever or, how we're
Right.
perceived. It's truly being of service. And I think my belief system is when we show up in service and no matter what it is that we're doing, the work is going to be more powerful.
Totally agree. Right. And that whole thing that comes out, that whole who am I to write a book, that whole imposter syndrome, because writing a book is one of those things that really triggers that, right? It's one of the
Sure.
biggest things. It's probably on the list of the top three. Who am I to write this? Who's going to read it? So I love that you're turning it around and saying, okay, this is for the reader. What does my reader want? Who am I serving? Knowing that audience, like you said. And that's really so important. And I think that's part of getting your book out into the right hands and making it successful is by delivering it to the people who really need it. So who are your people? Who really needs to find out about your book?
Right. And taking some of the pressure off, oftentimes what I find is I work with a lot of brilliant people and have conversations in rooms all over the place where a common theme is there's this perception you need to get everything into this book. And the
Yeah.
truth is, the more we strip away, the more powerful it becomes. It's about taking the core of the idea and building on that and making it simple and accessible for people. And then you can provide more, whether it's continuing to work with them in other ways or it's book 2 and 3 and 4. It doesn't have to, we can't reach people in the way in which we need to when we try to cram too much into a small package.
Yeah, I love that. And the best things do come in small packages.
Yes.
Uh, and it still remains so true. And I love that because that's part of the overwhelm, right? I get it as an author myself. That is part of that overwhelm. Like, how am I going to get all of my knowledge
Mm.
into this book? And if I'm going to spend my time and energy on this book, it better just like kill it, like we're trying to bite off more than we can chew. So, how do you rearrange that thinking? How do you really get them to break it down into bite sized chunks, if you will?
Yeah. Well, one of the things is also recognizing that there are multiple ways to share your content. And if we think about a book as that entry point, it's the gateway to someone meeting you and learning from you. They're going to continue, if you resonate, if they're your people,
Hmm.
they're going to follow your blog and on social media and all this content. What I have my clients do is I call it like a sacred notebook. It's
Mm.
where all of these ideas that don't necessarily serve the purpose of the book in its
Hmm.
current form,
Hmm.
that we can tuck away these ideas in a sacred place where they're not going to get lost,
Yes.
that we can come back to and
Hmm.
use them for additional content, whether that it might be for an online course, it might be for a social media post or blog post, it might show up in an interview on a podcast like this, who knows? But
Mm.
to know that I think there's a fear a lot of times for me, it's like, oh my gosh, if I don't act on this right away, I'm going to lose it. And so that was part of my own process that I've been able to share with others that's super effective is keep it someplace where and not just the throwaway notebook. I think it like have it be something that looks special and feels
Mm.
special
Mhm.
so that when you entrust that idea to the pages, it does feel like it's someplace for safekeeping.
I love that, like a beautiful journal, like a leather bound something with that nice little piece of ribbon that you can keep track of where you are, right?
Whatever speaks to your heart and
Uh-huh.
soul, but yeah, something that feels very intentional.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's really important. And also as a singer-songwriter, I totally get that. Like I feel as if, I have little scraps of paper, because I'm trying to get it down. But I like the idea of just one central place, your notebook, where all those ideas go, because they do just kind of fly away if you don't capture them
Yes.
in that moment. So having that accessible, putting those ideas also reduces your anxiety level, right?
Yes. Yes. So important.
Yeah, that anxiety that keeps creeping up, especially as creatives, because we are, constantly getting these amazing ideas. And if we don't capture them, they do just sort of fly away, but it does increase our anxiety. So, this is a nice way to say, hey, we've got our own back here. We're going to keep it in this lovely notebook. And all those dreams can come true at a later time. But it also allows you to focus on what's most important right now in the moment.
Exactly.
Bring
Yep.
yourself back to that present moment awareness. I call it PMA. I almost said PMS, but it's PMA. Present moment awareness. That's a whole other issue. It's a whole nother show. Um, Bringing yourself back into that, because that's really where the flow is, right? If you want to talk about helping writers write, that's where that flow comes from, that present. And when you can strip away, like you said before, all those external things, those thoughts, those worries, and new ideas coming in, I love that. That's a really simple way to solve that.
Yeah.
Awesome. So tell us, okay, dun dun dun, drum roll, because I love the fact that Jack Canfield is the one that left a review on the back of your book cover. That is so powerful. Like, tell us the backstory on that, because I know people are going to want to hear it.
Yeah. It is super special to me. And on the external, it could feel like, oh my gosh, somebody, New York Times bestseller that sold 500 million books, endorsing your book. That's a big deal. And it is. But what's really heartfelt special to me is the important role that Jack has played in my personal development journey. I
Hmm.
became aware of him through his book, The Success Principles. And
Aha.
that was back in the beginning of 2007, shortly after the book came out. And the book was recommended to me by my son.
Really? I love that.
And the cool part, just to take it one layer back, just quickly, I became pregnant with my son when I was 17.
Mm.
And so at that point, I gave up all my dreams and focused on being a mother. And part of that meant I didn't go to college. And so my son, fast forward all these years later, he's at his dream college. He's in a leadership class and they're doing a study on the success principles. And he called me and said, Mom, you need to read this book.
Mm.
And so I bought the book. And I have to tell you, when I first read it, there wasn't a whole lot of it that I could see for myself. It
Mm.
felt beyond reach. It didn't, people like me didn't do things like that.
Mm-hmm.
He talks a lot about different levels of success and types of success. And it really didn't feel accessible, but there was just enough in the book to keep me going back. And
Mm.
little by little by little, I built on the principles that I was learning. The very first principle is take 100% responsibility for your life. I mean,
Love
shut the
that.
front door, right?
I love that. That is one of my favorite things to say. Love
Yes.
that.
Um, so over the years, I stayed really involved in everything that he was offering. I just
Hmm.
was like a sponge. I couldn't get enough and became
Wow.
a certified trainer through his program, went to live events. And every time I went to an event, I would take the original book. I ended up having to get a second book because I wore the first one out,
You're
literally
kidding.
wore it out. The pages are coming out because they're, dog-eared and written in the
Uh-huh.
margins and highlighted. And I went back to it so often. It was like my guide to living almost.
Yeah.
And every
Wow.
time I would go to one of his events, I would open a chapter and have him sign it. So I have several chapters that are signed and different things. But the one principle, the chapter that I opened that now in retrospect is so meaningful is the principle ask, ask, ask.
Mm.
Because in order to get an endorsement from someone, you ask. Generally, people aren't coming out of the woodwork to come find you or ask to endorse your book. It's an ask that you're making. And back in 2007, the thought of opening my mouth to even utter the words to entertain the idea of someone at Jack's level of accomplishment to endorse my book. I mean, I never would have even entertained the idea.
Mm-hmm.
But now, through a lot of personal development and growth, there's no one else that I would want to see their endorsement on my book. Nothing, I didn't have a second choice. It
Wow.
was Jack. It was
Mm-hmm.
just Jack.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went through the process of connecting with him and his team and getting Profit Right in front of him. And he agreed to write the endorsement. And so that is on the back cover of the book. And yeah, pretty darn special to me.
Wow. Especially, see, I didn't know that backstory of how you were certified
Yes.
through him and
Yeah.
how that was such a life-changing book for you. Like that whole entire thing, it's just came full circle. Wow.
Full circle. And I think what that demonstrates too is you just have to keep taking the step in front of you in faith. I never
Mm,
could have dreamt, number one, that I would have written the book that I've written with Profit Right,
yeah.
n- nor that Jack would have endorsed it. I just, it was beyond the scope of my imagination
Mm,
from my
yeah.
younger self.
Yeah.
So
Beautiful.
how long it took to get there, it just really makes it all that much sweeter for me.
Right. Exactly. Because it was full circle. And this is your first book?
No, this is not the
Your
first
second.
book, but it's the first book. My other books are more about positive psychology, well-being.
Right.
So
That your
this is
your
my,
prior life. That's right.
yes, exactly. And so this is the first book stepping in to the work that I do now and actually following my own advice and creating the book that matches the work that I'm doing.
And I love that because we teach that which we need to learn. I always say that. And no matter
Yes.
how much we've done and how long we have done this work, we always need those reminders. We keep needing to remind ourselves, and every time I revisit my book or somebody tells me something new and of an aha moment they got from my book, it's another moment for me to reflect back on my own learning and thus our own teachings, right? And it's
Yes.
truly a powerful experience when we can, use our own stuff and it's not our family reminding us of what it is. Hey, do you really want to be telling that story, mom? You said so many incredible things. You talked a little bit, and I want to go back to what you just said about,
Sure.
using and how it probably enlightened you more into what your clients are going through as well. But you did talk about a story you had in there from, way back when you first got it and you couldn't have imagined yourself. And it was a little bit outside, it was a lot of it outside of your comfort zone, really using the principles in his book. How did you actually, turn that story around where you talked yourself into, hey, wait, maybe I can do this, What was that turnaround for you?
Well, I wish I could say it was one specific moment and one specific technique, but the
Hmm.
truth is it was continual work.
Yeah.
And it's finding, I even today notice this in my continual growth. It's finding that one gem, that one nugget, and digging into it and holding on to that, exploring it, getting curious about it and how it applies to you,
Hmm.
and then letting it grow from there. You don't have to absorb everything at one time.
Yeah.
And when I gave myself permission to start looking at the micro, it made the bigger picture all that much sweeter.
Yeah, that's really, really beautiful. I love that. And we're going to break really quick, everybody. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with Lynette. I know you're loving her stories. Hold tight. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Look for the Good. I'm here with Lanette Pottle. We are talking about the most incredible things here with her book. And I loved that story of Jack Canfield endorsement and how you came to, really develop yourself up into that. It's a beautiful thing. And the ask, ask, ask. Well, I really love what you said to me as well. That really going through this process gave, like, because you wrote your books quite some time ago, your other books.
Yes.
And so it kind of sort of reawakened you to some of the real life experiences that you help your clients get through. How did that happen? Like, what was the thing that really struck you the most? Like, wow, I didn't realize this was really going to be an issue for you. What surprised you about that process?
Well, there were a few surprises along the way. And I have to
There
say,
always are.
yes, right. One of the very first things. So I am such a staunch advocate of working from an outline, not an academic style outline. I do have a process and profit right that I talk about, a killer outline.
Uh-huh.
And why it's so critical. Outlines are not about starting, they're about finishing. They are the thing that
Mm.
get us across the finish line. Yet, when I started writing Profit Right, and that wasn't the name when I started, but when I started writing,
Really?
I started without an outline. And I had to pump on the brakes and say, slow your roll, sister. What are you doing? What are you doing?
Uh-huh.
And I I hit pause until I allowed myself the space to go through the full process that I take my
Mhm.
clients through in order to not only does it get you across the finish line, it gives you a very distinct story arc. You know where you're taking your reader because it's easy to, not for everyone, but it can be easy to write, just to write.
Right. Mhm.
But to have the words have meaning and take people on a journey,
Mm.
you must be intentional.
So
And
true.
without an outline, it is very difficult to do that.
So true. And it's so interesting because one of the authors that I really love is Stephen Covey, who made a really strong impression,
Yes.
kind of like I'd love to have him
Yes.
endorse my next book. You're getting my wheels going here. And so a long time ago, I did a presentation when I was back in my corporate days, and our boss assigned us, each one of us one of the steps, and mine was begin with the end in mind. And
Yes.
so it makes me think about this
Mhm.
because I love knowing what my bookends, no pun intended, are of the book. So I love the beginning and I love the conclusion. I love the conclusion because if you don't start knowing what your conclusion is, like you just said, you can't weave your way there. So
Right.
same thing with a song, right? Like, ooh, it's gonna be cool. I'm gonna open with this. Oh, and then I'm gonna come back with this little twist here in the middle. I'm gonna end with this. And
Mhm.
then I feel like, don't you feel like it just writes itself after that?
Yeah, it's much, much easier to get through things and allowing yourself to, one of the things I talk about too is editing as you go keeps you slow.
Yeah.
So allowing yourself, you've made this roadmap, you are intentional with where you're taking people.
Hmm.
Don't get caught up in the headspace of everything needs to be grammatically correct and
Right.
all of that. Just allow yourself the space that you know where you're going.
Mm. Yeah.
Right. Refinement comes later.
That's beautiful. I love what you said. That little quip was editing as you go keeps you slow
Yes.
because that's that ridiculous critical brain of ours that is just trying to get in there. Ooh, you better change that. You better because you could spend the whole next 10 years editing your book, right?
Yes. Yeah.
It's like editing never ends. I say that to people if they ask me my opinion on writing books. So you have to at some point say, okay,
Mhm.
let's go with it because there
Yes.
comes that point because really that's really just imposter syndrome that keeps coming up and thinking it's going to get so much better, but actually sometimes it takes the magic right out of it.
Totally. And I often find that it's a defense mechanism.
Mm,
It's a way of keeping us, thinking that we have to, it needs to be better, it needs to be better. Oh, just this one more change. And also, it's giving this false sense of, okay, this really is keeping me safe
yeah,
because I'm writing this
exactly.
book for other people, but I don't want other people to read it and judge me. That's the big
Exactly.
underlying fear that comes so often it's the fear of judgment. What will
Yeah.
people think?
So, what would the neighbors say? One of those stories that were plugged into our head a really long time ago. Somebody said it to us before we were even 7, and it just runs in there.
Mhm.
And I love that, you're embracing that as far as like, okay, it's time to put a stop at, and it also delays the process so we don't have to launch the book. We don't have to shine our light, right? That's what we're most afraid of is, as Marianne Williamson said, it's not about us being small, it's about how big we actually are and how
Right.
powerful we actually are
Mhm.
and stepping into that like what I am going to do this, and we all feel that like the week, I'm sure you see this all the time with your authors, like right before they're going to go live, wait, hold on a second, I can't put the book out there, wait, I cannot tell that story, I can't tell that story that's in there, I can't do it, right? And they have all these cold feet, second thoughts. How does that go with most
Well,
authors?
and I want to say too that no one is immune from that. I
Yep.
am not immune from that, but also I think about people that I talk to from PhD, people that have advanced degrees. 1% of the population has this advanced degree, and yet imposter syndrome still exists there. And I think that's a powerful thing to know
Yeah.
because especially if you're someone who's had self-directed learning, kind of
Hmm.
gone through the school of hard knocks, it's easy to fall into the trap of, oh, I don't have the fancy degree. That's why I can't. If
Yeah.
I just had the degree, I could do this or that. And the truth is, the degree does not remove imposter syndrome.
It's so true. I have a whole seminar that I do on imposter syndrome. And that's one of the things I say. It doesn't matter how many letters, I don't care what is after your name.
Yes.
You are going to bump into this when you go to step out of your comfort zone.
Hmm.
And that's what this is. And that's what the brain does. You mentioned it a couple times in what you were saying. The brain is designed to keep us safe. And I love normalizing imposter syndrome because, like you just said, we're all going to bump into it. Even you're an expert on launching books, and we are all going to bump into it. Me as well. And so, yeah, I love that. Oh, one more degree. Maybe I'll get certified in this. Maybe I'll be fill in the blank, right? We
Right.
all have that.
Hmm.
It's a limiting belief in there with a fill in the blank. So I'll be good enough when, and it's
When.
actually an exercise I do with clients. Let's fill in that when, because that's going to give us a lot more information on what it actually is that's holding you back from whatever it is, launching the book, finishing the book,
Exactly.
stopping
Yep.
your editing, OCD editing, you could call it.
Yes.
Because it goes on and it never really stops. So I love that. So that kind of surprised you this time when you dove into it, that it started coming up again for you?
Yeah, like I say, I totally was not immune to it. There were moments that came up, and I've not shared this with anyone. You have an interesting way.
Uh-huh.
You must be like a Barbara Walters there, but um there was a point earlier in the spring where I had set the book aside
Hmm.
and did the classic, well, I don't know. The time's probably not right. I have some other things I need to focus on. It was all a defense mechanism. It was
Wow.
all about not allowing myself to be vulnerable to I was still
Yeah.
working through just some of my own stuff. It's like a spiral staircase, right? That visual of the more
Yes.
you elevate, the more you develop and grow, and then you're coming around the corner and then you hit this dark spot on the spiral staircase. It's like, oh, it's a new level, but it feels very familiar. What is this funk that's showing up? And that's what I continue anytime we're doing things worthwhile and pushing and growing. I
Yeah.
think that spiral staircase analogy comes into play
Hmm.
because dealing with our self-criticism, limiting beliefs, it's not a one and done.
No,
It's not, and
it's never done.
it's a lifelong practice, and
Mm.
having an awareness. I think that's the big thing
Hmm.
is developing an awareness of when it's happening, calling yourself on it, and working through it a lot more quickly. So yeah, I went through all the things that my authors go through. And with the editing, I was sharing with a client just yesterday. She's on the home stretch. She's getting ready to turn her manuscript over to the copy editor, and she's still kind of doing some refinements before she turns it over.
Uh-huh.
And I was able to share the story with her of how with Profit right down to the very last minute proofread. Okay, the book's been laid out, it's
Hmm.
ready to go to print, final proofread. And I'm having this anxiety rise of it's 3 paragraphs in the whole book, but I'm like, I should have written that differently. Maybe I should just do it. And I didn't, of course, and
Uh-huh.
recognized it for what it was. But what I've also come to learn when it comes to books specifically is every time you go back in, you create the opportunity to introduce bigger, bigger errors,
Right?
open loops. things, it can become an endless cycle. So
Yes.
being at peace that you've said what you need to say. I always have a mantra of just let the right words flow through me. And
Mm.
that's what I trust in when I'm writing.
I love that. Did you know I was gonna ask you what your mantra was?
I did not.
That is really I love that because you're totally normalizing it for everybody, right? You're normalizing that this is what happens when we step out of our comfort zone. I like that spiral staircase analogy because I don't think there is an end to the top of that staircase,
Right,
right?
right.
It just keeps going on and on. And even though we've done this work so long, you with a background in positive psychology for so many years, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many letters you have after your name. You're
Yeah.
just gonna feel it.
And remembering, I think also the big thing that I remind myself of back to that staircase is each level that you ascend, that dark corner might feel familiar, look familiar, but you're bringing all of the tools with you that you've gained as you've, ascended each level. And to
Yeah.
remember you're not the person that you were when you were at the beginning.
Yeah, and you can handle it better now. Like you said, you've got more tools in the tool bag, and that tool
Mhm.
bag's always kind of strapped on you. I'm picturing
Yeah,
that as you're walking up that staircase.
right.
And who knows, maybe you have a little flashlight in there so that next time when you go around that little corner, it's
Yeah.
not so dark. It's not
Yes.
so dark. And I love that because you've developed as a person and you're never going to fall all the way down to the bottom of that staircase. It's just going to keep going up and up to the next
Right.
level. And there's a lot of excitement in that. There can be that fear, but when that you try to put that fear aside or shine some light on that fear,
Mhm.
um, I think you can turn it into excitement because anxiety, fear, it's not that different from excitement as far as the way an emotion feels, right?
Yes. And I don't know who said it, and maybe but the expression was that fear is excitement without breath.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah. I've not heard that.
Oh, that has stuck with me. And that is something, for instance, in public speaking,
That's
that
exactly what I was thinking of. Yeah.
for me, it's remembering that. And I really do use that as energy. I turn that into positive energy, but being aware of breathing through it because fear, you're tensed up. But if you strip away that element of it is those same kind of feelings, how you experience it in your body if you just allow yourself to breathe and relax through it.
It totally is. It's like before I go out on stage, even after doing this for so long,
Yes.
I just had a talk this last weekend and, I've got my guitar on, I'm ready. I do my talk with my music and you always get that same bubble up. But yes, it's having that little mantra, that little something that you go to, or I might jump up and down to shake my body.
Yes.
And then
Physical movement.
right? Physical movement is everything, and shaking that body turns it into excitement. Now it's like because you jump up and down like a kid when they're excited, and now it
Yes.
does it. Now I'm telling the body, I'm excited. I'm not
Mhm.
scared. I'm excited. So whatever works for you, it's really just getting in there and finding that one little trick, to keep yourself in that mode. So we're gonna break really quick, everybody. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with Lynette. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Look for the Good. We're having this exciting and really awesome conversation with Lynette about her new book, Profit Right. And we were talking earlier about really knowing who your audience is, right? Who did you write this for? Knowing that is half the battle because it makes your pen flow. And that was one of your mantras that you said. So share with us exactly who this is for. Who did you keep picturing in your mind when you're writing Profit Right?
Yeah, and that does become so critical because if you're writing to a specific person or kind of person, it's a filter. I
Mm,
approach this as having a conversation with someone, and when you read the book, you'll understand that comes through to the page. And who I was thinking of was the entrepreneur, the coach, the change maker,
mm,
but someone specifically that they're brilliant at what they do, but they don't consider themselves a writer. And so
wow.
even though they're getting fabulous results with their clients, even though they're creating movements and doing big work in the world,
Mhm.
when they think about translating that to a book, they shut themselves down because they don't consider themselves a writer.
Oh, and isn't that such a story, a negative belief, just
Hmm.
a negative story that we've told ourselves? Oh, I'm not a writer.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody told them a really long time ago when they were young, oh, you're not really good at writing. Teachers can sometimes slip those things out, right? And it just kind of stuck in there. So how do you help them get over that to make them believe in themselves and in their skills that they could possibly be a writer and be a good one?
Yeah. Well, and I think part of it is taking the pressure off. It's
Mm,
about surrounding yourself with a team. Nobody can help you refine your work if you don't get it down on the page.
right.
But once it's there, I mean, it's not like you write it and then you're handing it to your audience. It's going to go through maybe developmental editing or copy editing, proofreading. It's going to go through several stages. I have my clients go through a process we call alpha readers. So it's
Yep.
even before it goes to editing to
Mhm.
help get some big picture ideas. And so there's lots of phases that it goes through. So allowing yourself to know that like nobody when you pick up a book and read a book, when you read your favorite author, that isn't how it came out on the page when they
Right.
sat down to write.
It's
They've
so
had a
true.
lot of help to get it there. And those people that we surround ourselves with help elevate our words and our voice,
Mhm.
but the ideas are our own. No one has our
Mm.
lived experiences. No one has our same exact frameworks if you're talking about entrepreneurs or coaches, right? It's your own take on that, but other people can help you refine it, cor- make grammar corrections so that
Mhm.
people don't get caught up in those things, that they can really receive the message. But you're not responsible for all of that.
And I love that. And I also love what you said. Nobody can write it just like they can. Nobody really
Yes.
understands their process, which is what makes it unique and makes them their expert in that because we all bring a different flavor. You and I are both coaches, but we approach things completely different. And we can talk the coach lingo, but when it
Right.
comes to paper and pen, too, that's where real personality comes from. Like, I've been part of writing groups where you have like, okay, we're all going to write a story about a pair of jeans today. Now you're
Yes.
going to get just as many variations on that topic as people in the room, right?
Mhm.
Because everybody sees life through their own lens. We're not, it's that old Anais Nin quote, right? Life is not what it appears; it's how we see it through our own lens,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's powerful. And that's what I love about writing is that flavor. It's like making a soup. You and I could have the same recipe, but it's going to taste a little different.
And giving ourselves permission, I think along that line is, I think about, so I had years ago, I had a long career in human resources. And that's a very particular type of writing, right? In
Yes,
my
it is.
professional life, I was doing a very specific kind of writing. And early on, it was easy for me to let that flavor or color how I was writing. And I wasn't writing for that individual.
Mhm.
So today, when you pick up Profit Right, honestly, and this is the feedback that I've gotten, is it's like us sitting down in a coffee shop and having a conversation. It isn't, if I would have got stuck in the trap of it needed to be a certain way in order
Mhm.
for it to be a professional representation of my work, number one, it wouldn't really be me. And number two, if people came to work with me, they'd be really disappointed because what they read wouldn't be what they experienced with me as an individual.
Mm.
And it's really important to me, no matter where, if you are following me on social or you read my book or we sit down at a coffee shop, I'm me all the
Yeah.
time. And it's great to have permission just to show up as yourself all the time. It's much less exhausting than trying
Totally.
to fit a certain mold.
Totally. And that's what's going to make you stand out because
Yeah.
that's Lynette's voice. It's not somebody else's voice. It's your voice. And that's where people having that illusion that they're not a writer, they're their own flavor of a writer.
Exactly. And I'm not, look, everybody's not going to love me, love my writing. That's okay. I know that. I
Right.
know that. And it also helps. Um, it just attracts the right people to you. Who is it that you want to work with? Who is it that you want to impact? Who do you want to be joining you, linking arms with you in the movement that you're creating?
Mm.
That's a filter right there. Just show up as yourself and you're going to attract the people that drive with you and what you stand for and how you just how you show up in the world.
Absolutely. Be 100% yourself. I always
Hmm.
tell that to young people because that's what makes you stand out. When you
Yeah.
spend a lot of time, and in this day and age with the onset of social media and the comparison thing, people don't, I think people have forgot to read, to just go back in there and define who it is that you are and be that holy, be that fully. And that's what's going to draw people to you for sure.
Yeah, and I would say I would add to that is that it's not just young people. I find
Mm,
I'm in my 50s, so I'll share that. And I find women in my generation, in my age group, there's more programming and messaging to kind of work through. So sometimes
yeah.
if you're in later stages of life, it can be just as difficult because you're stripping away all of the things that you've been taught you need to be.
So
Uh,
true.
yeah.
So true. And I find when I bring a new client on, um, because I mostly work with women, they forget who they are. They forget what they love. That's part of who we
Hmm.
are. What do you love?
Right.
What are the things you used to do when you were a kid that you no longer do? Or did you always have a dream that you thought you would write a book? Like I always knew in my head I would. I just didn't know when.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, it's really stripping. I love that, stripping away all those layers of who we're supposed to be, especially when we reach those stages where our kids are older and they're
Yeah.
leaving now, and we are like, "Ooh, I have time to be me now." Isn't that so cool? Wait, who am I?
Yeah, exactly.
Wait a minute, what do I like? I know what everybody else loves, but I forgot what I
Mhm.
love. And I love that. That's why there's so much more that you're doing. Yes, you're supporting people to write their books, but it's really such a bigger process than that. It's really redefining you and embracing your potential and dropping all those negative limiting beliefs that lead us to edit the heck out of our books.
Yes.
It's a journey back to yourself. I love that concept. I think is really beautiful and it's really important for people nowadays.
There's always something, it's different for every individual, but with my clients, there's always some kind of surprise that they'll tell me about at the end. Yes, they learned a lot about creating a book and publishing a book, but it's something they learned about themselves in the
Mm.
process. It is such a personal development. You couldn't pay for a course that teaches you as much about yourself as going through this book writing journey.
I love that. You gotta use that in your marketing out there because that is so it's so true, and you don't expect that. You're not expecting that,
Mhm.
especially when you're working with professionals. They're like, "Let's just get the ideas down on paper. Let's get this book. It's gonna be a great vehicle because it is. It's all those things, right?
Yes.
It's your
Mhm.
new business card, really. It's all those things, but what you don't expect is the self-development journey that comes along with the writing process. I love that.
Yeah.
Really beautiful. So share one little tidbit if you could. Um, if people are like, oh, they're thinking about it, their minds are opening. I'd love to experience that with Lynette. Um, give them one or two tips of how they can just really shake off those self doubt that comes up because the self doubt is enormous when it comes up with writing a book.
Well, I think in general, whatever the project, and certainly with a book, is we have created a lifetime of evidence of our greatness. And we
Mm,
overlook that.
love
We
it.
tend to look at the things where we perceive we've messed up or made a mistake. We look at those with a magnifying glass. But the places where we have really stood in our brilliance, we just gloss that over. We don't think
Yeah.
about it. And
Hmm.
so creating a list, spending some time and going back and rediscovering all of the evidence that's there waiting for you
Mm,
to find it, to rediscover it. So get curious about yourself. I think that's how I would kind of sum that up and allow yourself to see all of that through the lens as if you were looking at it of your best friend
mm.
or your adult child or anyone that you really care about. If you were giving them feedback about this evidence that you were finding, what would you tell them?
I love that. That's really beautiful. Really, really beautiful. I also love, you mentioned best friend because I was thinking about that too. If you're not sure where to start, it's the people who love you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ask them get curious and ask them some questions, right?
Yes. And I think going just even a little degree further than that, because I know for myself, and I'm suspecting others, is sometimes we discount the people that already love us. Of course, they're going to say good things about me. We just discount that no matter how heartfelt it
Uh-huh.
is. It's like throwaway praise. So we don't even think about it. But if you could go out a degree in your network, people
Mm.
that have experienced you in different ways in a professional setting, or just different aspects of your life, and being brave enough to ask. It goes back to that ask, ask, ask.
Mhm.
That applies for everything. So getting feedback just about, what do people find most captivating about you? What do they find? What attracted them to you? Not necessarily romantically, but I'm saying as a
To work with you.
collaborator, as you invited me to speak to your group. Why?
Mhm.
Getting some of these kinds bits of feedback and just taking it all on board.
I love that. That is really, really beautiful. It's a beautiful place to land. It's a beautiful conclusion, Lynette,
Oh my
to
gosh.
our a beautiful conclusion to our chat today. So tell them, where can they find you? Where can they find your book? Give them your link to all that.
Yeah, so Profit Right is available. It will be available at all major booksellers. So right now, I know for sure it's on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles, but it'll be distributed widely. So anywhere that you buy your books, you can find Profit Right. And as far as finding me, my handles on social are She Gets Published, and that's
Love that.
also my website, shegetspublished.com.
Yes, and you have become an international bestseller already with this book, and you only just launched it last
Yeah,
week.
pretty exciting stuff.
Congratulations on all your
Thank you so
success.
much.
I love the work that you're doing so much to help the world really embrace their creativity and get their message out there to help other people. That's what it's all about, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me here, Carrie. Love spending
Absolutely.
time with you.
You too. Right back at you, Lynette. So great to see you. And I'm super excited about your book. So remember, everybody, if you want to find out the details and the scoop behind the scoop is on my mailing list. So sign up for that at carrierowan.com. Just click on the podcast tab up top. And as always, everyone, be well. And remember, it is never too late to live your best story. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to Look for the Good with your host, Carrie Rowan, best-selling author and mindset coach. Join us every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. right here at Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. If you weren't able to catch an episode, no worries. Just visit our website to find all the archived episodes of Look for the Good on demand, so you don't miss a thing. And remember, it's never too late to live your best story. For additional resources or to find out about how you can work with Carrie directly, visit carrierowan.com for more details.